So exercising, training is something that probably the majority of the population needs to do more, and it's also quite fucking difficult to do it consistently. It's one of the biggest problems I see with clients and I see with friends and family is really just, there's always the beginning and the great intention of doing something, and then the ability to be persistent with something and consistent it just lacks. The biggest barrier to success is not being able to do something consistently, because when you're able to do something consistently, you see results, because anything inconsistent is not going to achieve anything really. The whole principle of eating one healthy meal doesn't make you healthy, and eating one bad meal doesn't make you unhealthy. It's something you need to do consistently over time to achieve something. So at the start of lockdown, many goals were set, and many goals were also miserably achieved. I was going to do this as well. I was going to become, the most flexible person you'll ever see. Aiming to do about 15 handstand sessions a day, home sessions, running, just this endless list of, oh my God, I have all this time on my hands, look at all these things that we can do, when actually you've got to remember that you need to enjoy things in order to do them. Now, setting new goals is pretty exciting because you can be as ambitious as you like. You can only imagine how it's going to feel when you achieve that goal, which is often filled with some kind of sense of elation and kind of a good feeling of, when I lose a bit of fat, I'm going to feel brilliant. And therefore, when you think about, okay, I'm going to lose some fat, you're pretty motivated and you're pretty excited, because all you can think about is how you're going to feel when you lose that fat. However, the one thing that people always miss when setting goals is how you're going to feel in the process of trying to achieve that goal, which is ultimately far more important, because how you feel during the process determines whether or not you're going to be consistent with something. When you sat in your nice warm living room with your fluffy dressing gown on, your nice fluffy blanket, and all you've got to figure out is whether or not you're going to have Ben & Jerry's or a bowl of Cocoa Pops, and that's the only thing you've got to think about. You know that the next task of your day is to go to sleep. It's a pretty great time to think of all these, great things you can do, and therefore at that time you're probably going to feel really motivated about all these things that you can achieve. And at this time, it's really easy to set unrealistic goals and feel super excited about them until you wake up the next morning and think, okay, I'm definitely not going to get up and go for a run. I think that the main thing that's ignored is that we really struggle to empathise and relate to a situation that we're not currently experiencing, i.e., when you're really hot, you cannot imagine what it feels like to be really cold, and vice versa. And when you're all relaxed and warm, and kind of any other adjective that fits that description, you cannot imagine how it's going to feel when you're actually on that run. All you can think about is how you're going to feel afterwards and how you're going to feel when you've met the goal. Deciding to run 25 miles a week, meditate 20 minutes a day is great, and it's a great goal to set out, but is it really realistic, and how are you actually going to feel during it? Because if you don't enjoy the process of doing something, mate, you are literally not going to stick to it. When setting goals, the only thing that current you needs to deal with is the fulfillment and the excitement you feel from visualizing and thinking about it, rather than dealing with the actual, ticking the boxes every single day and getting things done. Now, the two main reasons why people don't achieve their goals is, one, because they're unrealistic, and two, well, because they're unrealistic. As I said, humans really do struggle with empathising with a different physiological or psychological state other than the one that we're currently experiencing. And therefore, when you are setting goals, when you're on your sofa, you're nice and warm, you're nice and fluffy. And that tends to be the time when you do set these goals. But as I said, you can only imagine that when you're on that run, you're going to feel the same and excited as you are right now. But we tend not to set goals when we're at 145 BPM, on our third mile, because you can't breathe and you can't think. So you might be thinking, well, so you're basically saying that in order to set realistic goals, you need to set the goals when you're in the same physiological state that you will be in when you're trying to achieve them. How's that realistic? How do I set goals I can actually achieve? Well, first of all, if that's your thought process, there is the first thing wrong. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So basically, it's not that you haven't set the right goal, or you haven't set a goal that motivates you enough or fills you with excitement enough. It's that you haven't actually thought about the process of getting to that goal. If you're reliant upon solely feeling motivated and excited about doing something, you're literally never going to do something, because as humans, emotions are like that. You can't control them. Motivation is another emotion that you can't control, and if you're solely reliant upon feeling motivated in order to go for that run, in order to do that training session, in order to eat better, you're not going to do it. You have no systems or process in place to determine that how you're going to get somewhere. If you don't feel motivated, if you don't have any willpower, ultimately you're going to fail. So for example, the night before you go for a run, get your running shoes out, get your running clothes out, so it's all ready for when you wake up. Set your alarms and timings appropriately so that you can wake up, go for your run, have your breakfast, get showered, go, and have enough time and not be late for work. And 3, the night before, find a podcast, find an audiobook that you can listen to on your run. You've got 3 things that you've planned for your run that will massively reduce the probability of you waking up and being like, you know what, no, I'm not going for a run. And as well as that, do you really want the impending doom all day when you're at work of knowing that when you get back, you need to go for a run? You can develop discipline and have systems in place to mean that you don't need to rely upon your willpower or your motivation to do things, because obviously relying on your motivation to do anything is ultimately a bit of a stupid idea. But the larger elephant in the room is, do you actually enjoy it? So enjoyment is a state or process of taking pleasure from something. I think we typically tend to associate enjoyment with things like, being in your comfort zone and not feeling any sense of discomfort, i.e. sitting on your sofa, watching Netflix with a bowl of popcorn. That's a pretty good time. But again, enjoyment is taking pleasure from the process of doing something. So yeah, sure, you probably don't, I certainly don't necessarily enjoy or take pleasure from the feeling of when I'm running and my leg's really hurting and my lungs are about to collapse. But what I really do take pleasure from is how I feel when I finish. The sense of achievement and the feeling in your body once you've finished is unreal. So I think, again, there's a whole thing of do what you love until you love what you do, in the sense of if you're trying to be consistent with something and you're trying to be consistent with doing something that you absolutely fucking hate, you're not going to ever be consistent with it. Let's say, for example, you want to exercise more, you want to develop a consistent exercise routine, but you hate running and you hate lifting weights. But let's say that you absolutely love playing tennis. How about 3 times a week you go and play tennis, and eventually you fall in love with the process of exercising, you fall in love and begin to positively reinforce how you feel once you finish playing tennis with the process itself of exercising, and as a result you'll fall in love with exercising and you'll be able to broaden your horizons to doing different things and still taking pleasure / enjoyment from them. You don't need to run if you hate running, you don't need to squat if you hate squatting. Start with doing things that you enjoy until you can eventually enjoy everything. So in short, set goals, but they are not the be all and end all. Don't expect that just because you've set a goal, you're going to reach it. You need a process, you need a plan, and you need to be able to execute it efficiently in order to get there. Secondly, have systems in place so that you're not solely reliant upon your willpower to get things done, because 8 out of 10 times you're not going to feel motivated to do things, and therefore you won't do anything. So if you have systems in place that mean that you don't have to feel motivated, you will get the things done, and kind of developing the ability to do things despite how you feel and kind of being more disciplined. But finally, and the most important point, is start with something that you enjoy until you're able to enjoy everything. AKA, love playing tennis, play tennis until you eventually begin to realise how good exercising makes you feel, and you can exercise in different ways. So that's everything. Do let me know if you found it interesting, and also how you have managed to develop a consistent exercise routine, and or what your biggest kind of struggle to being consistent with exercising is. It'd be quite interesting to know. And also, if you are wanting a structured way of training, I do have a free home program, which I'll put the link in the description down below. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't have to get it, but it's there if you want it. Anyway, thanks for watching and speak soon.